right, welcome back to another episode of
the Hafu It.
The Hafu It. I'm Kyoko.
I'm Sakura.
And this week we're talking about idols.
Yeah, we're talking about idols.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. So I think for a lot of North Americans, when they hear the word idol, they immediately think of American Idol.
Yes.
So idols in East Asia are a little bit different than what we perceive idols to be here in the West. So basically an idol is someone who is in the entertainment industry, either a singer, a dancer, a model. But these people are basically found by a certain production company and then groomed into whatever idol position that they're going into, usually from a really young age.
Yeah.
They usually find these very talented young kids that then will groom them for many, many years before they make their debut. And it's very similar in like South Korea, especially with their idol community. I do notice that there's a lot of crossover between Japanese idols and Korean idols, just in the sense that a lot of K-pop groups have like Japanese members. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about idols.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in regards to idol culture that idols are specifically groomed from a young age.
Right.
Because I think part of the whole interest in them is being able to watch how these people develop.
Well, especially nowadays, because it's almost like a full documentary series that follow these idols from a young age. I don't know what it would have been back in like the 80s and the 90s, but definitely now their come up is almost like just as important as like their debut.
Yeah, 100%. I imagine like back in the 80s when I think idol culture was really like probably like the first boom.
Starting
out,
like the first
the little
gen.
Sizzling, the simmering. Yeah. I think it must have been like mostly just like media coverage, just like news, like in the news coverage.
Right.
Tabloids and whatnot.
Yeah.
Or the equivalent.
Totally.
Of that.
Yeah. So idols are always people who I kind of idolized growing up, just because idols are, you know, generally very, very talented. They're also generally very beautiful. So growing up and seeing so many like perfect, beautiful people, I was definitely drawn to that. But oddly enough, as like an adult, I definitely follow more Korean idols than I do Japanese idols.
Right.
But growing up, it was more definitely like Japanese idols that I specifically like to, you know.
Yeah, I don't think
follow.
I ever like actually got into idol culture specifically. What I know about idols and idol culture comes from a lot of watching anime, which we've already talked about on this podcast. But yeah, I know that it seems very different than what we have here in the Western world. We obviously we idolize people here, as in like definitely the same level of wanting to be that person or that group of people wanting to you've talked about this before on this podcast, and getting like plastic surgery to look like these people, buying the same cologne. This year or 2020, it's 2021 now. Jeez.
Here we go.
In 2020, Corpse Husband really blew up, and the world idolized him so hard.
We love you, Corpse Husband.
We love you, Corpse Husband. He blew up so hard that when he like very briefly on a gaming stream said the name of his cologne, it's like sold out. So he did like a little live recently where he was like, I can't even buy my own cologne because you guys have
hilarious.
bought my cologne. And I imagine that that's probably exactly like the level of idolization of specifically idols in Japan. And maybe we should talk about kind of the difference between just like a celebrity, which is what we kind of call our version of idols over here, and an idol, because there is a bit of a difference.
Yeah. Well, my interpretation, a celebrity in North America isn't necessarily famous because of any particular skill they have. They're famous because of like how they present themselves.
Yeah.
I always like go to the Kardashians. So initially they weren't singers or dancers or actors or musicians or anything like that, but they were able to build this huge empire for themselves. Where you don't really see stuff like that happening in in like Japan specifically, of people not really having a certain skill, but then becoming multi-billionaires. So that's kind of like my differentiating between the two kind of communities of celebrity is you can kind of become famous for nothing in North America, where I feel you can't do that. And maybe I'm being shady. I don't know.
I mean, I think it's the truth, because I think that is like the main difference between celebrities here in North America and the equivalent in Asia. I think idols specifically, like they usually have like their niche. I think like more often than not, they're usually singers, but to be an idol instead of just a singer or a member of a band,
Totally.
you have to also act. You have to also perform in different ways.
Totally. And in East Asia, there's of course actors who aren't idols, who didn't go through any sort of production company to be groomed into what they were today. There's obviously people who just act, people who just seen, who are outside of the idol community.
Yeah, and I think that that's a misconception like out there too with the term idol. And just like to clarify, we are talking about idols, the celebrities who are meant to go
through these production companies.
Yeah, definitely.
Totally, yeah. And going back to you saying like idolizing these people, it's so interesting because I will hear about a new idol that's kind of like hit the mainstream, and if I go into any Japanese market, all of the like images for the hair dye will be that idol, but with like different photoshopped like hair. Like they'll be on all of these products like almost instantaneously. So that's how strong the idol culture is in say like Japan and Korea. It's so strong that you can sell a product with that person's face on it when they've just started out their career.
Yeah, it's one thing for propaganda to kind of like you see in the tabloids like photos of like of different celebrities, and the titles of the articles are often like, what is she wearing, who's she wearing, like, or who wore it better. Whereas at least like with the idols in Asia, they like go a step further than that, and they're like, look, this is exactly the product that you can use to like
totally
that this person uses without even putting it in a magazine or anything like that. It's there on the shelf with their picture on it, telling you very explicitly, if you buy this dye, you will look exactly like
you will become this idol. And that's what everyone wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like easy market.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you just mentioned like couples right now and like who's dating who.
Right.
Because in the idol community, it's generally written into your contract that you are not allowed to date.
Really?
It is insane. Yeah, it's actually super problematic, but a lot of these companies refuse to allow their idols to date. They sometimes will not allow their idols to even kind of like commingle with the opposite sex or different sexes. So I think you get like less scandals of like who's dating who, because if you're caught dating someone, which happened to a very, very popular Korean idol. Both of them were idols. It was a gentleman and a lady, and they were both terminated from their production company because they started a relationship with one another.
Wow.
Which doesn't matter because now they're with a better production company and they're slaying the game.
Is it Psy's production company?
It is.
Lovely. We love Psy.
We love Psy so much because he just allows his members to do exactly what they want to do instead of being like restricted so much. Because not only do they tell you like whether you can date or not, they also control your image. They control your image completely. Maybe if you get to like a certain point in the game, you'd be allowed to have a little bit of say of what you look, but the way they dress, the hair color they get chosen, all that kind of stuff is almost pre-chosen for them. Right. So if you're, say like more like cottagecore like experience, you could be put into a super gothy look and that's your aesthetic, even though that's like not who you are as a person. Right. But that's what they've chosen for you. You're going to be the alternative kind of like edgy member. So I think that's really interesting. It must be very hard to be creative when you're not being allowed to actually express who you are.
Yeah, and speaking of like identity crises too, right? Like it's hard for like regular people to come to terms with like who they are and try to understand who they are, whether you are mixed race or not.
Yeah.
Just in general. But if you're an idol, especially if you're an idol from a young age and you have a however many year contract with your production company, and they assign you an identity pretty much. They like tell you have to be this completely different person.
Yeah.
So what happens when you come out of that contract, when you come out of being an idol?
100%.
Are you like really that person? Do you change yourself into being that person? Or like how do you like maintain who you really are if you don't know who you really are?
Well, and that's the thing. Obviously, I don't know really what goes on behind the scenes, but oftentimes when people either leave their production company or they've been terminated from their production company, you don't ever really see those people start a solo career or like stay in the public eye. When you're out of your company, you usually just disappear from the spotlight completely.
Right.
And I wonder if that has to play with the fact that they never got to develop themselves as an artist. They were developed as a certain image underneath a production company.
Yeah, I guess on a certain comparison to that too, in North American culture, like you have actors and singers who are stuck to and associated with a certain
100%.
Niche. Like Daniel Radcliffe as Harry Potter. Like
100%.
A certain generation of people will forever see him as only Harry Potter.
Totally.
When he's done amazing work in other films, television shows, Broadway plays.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift was lodged into her very early like country pop niche, and she's like releasing folk music now, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But yeah, celebrities just in general, I think, just get mixed into that niche so early in their life.
Yeah, totally. In North America, being a millennial and growing up with Britney Spears, as soon as Britney Spears became hot, every other pop star essentially had to try to mimic her image or mimic her sound or her dancing. Artists who were mostly just singers before would get called in by their record label and be like, okay, so you got to show more skin. We're going to do more intricate choreography, just to kind of like keep up.
Hashtag free Britney.
Hashtag free Britney.
Yeah, because there's everything that's going on with her now, right? Where her fans, her longtime fans, are kind of seeing what the downfall of coming out of that level of popularity and celebrity.
Well, she had I think like probably a similar experience to what idols get, because she was on the Mickey Mouse Club when she was super young. So she was literally groomed by the entertainment industry until she left the Mickey Mouse Club and came out as like a solo artist.
Miley Cyrus too is like
100%
versus who she is now.
Exactly.
Maybe not Katy Perry.
Oh!
Hilary Duff though.
There's like lots of artists that have felt like they've had to compete with Britney Spears.
So I know that we've already talked about anime on this podcast, but there was an anime that I watched growing up, and this is probably like the only like source of information that I have in pop culture anyway that is related to idol culture.
Yes.
And it's called Kirarin Revolution. Yes. And it's about this schoolgirl, Kirari, who is one of those super idol fans, and one of the idols that she like worships is a band called Ships.
Yes.
And who actually were a real band, and I remember finding that like very interesting. But she is like has a major crush, as is like the regular arc of the story in many animes surrounding schoolgirls as the main character. And she tries really hard to get into one of these. There's like an audition for their production company to become an idol.
Right.
And she just knew that they were going to be there because it was their production company. And she tries to sneak in, and she gets caught by the other member of this band who's like much more like mean. And it like spirals her through this journey to becoming an idol. And she like wins that because she has a secret power to sing. And she joins their production company, and they like work together over the course of however many seasons that anime went on for. But I wonder do you know if that's true? If are there like idol auditions?
Oh, there's idol auditions, and there's also now full reality shows where they like find idols and idols compete to become like the winners.
Wow.
And the winners, usually like the top probably like 4 to 10 idols who are in like the top, they'll form at the end of the show like a girl or a guy group. Or a group, and the most popular out of that group will usually go on to solo careers, or they will form their own group. So, there's for sure auditions. There's for sure like competition reality shows. It's such a huge community that, yeah, for sure.
That's a little bit problematic.
It's definitely a little problematic, especially because of like the age of like a lot of these usually girls are like 13, 14 years old, and it's a big world. It's a very adult world to get kind of shoved into right away. But there's actually Hapa, who is a pretty popular K-pop star. Her name is Somi. She's a Hapa from Canada. She's from Ontario, but she moved back to Korea with her family, and again started like the idol boot camp, if you will, for many, many years, and then got onto one of these reality boot camp shows and ended up winning the entire show, and then has now moved on to a solo career.
Right.
So that was very interesting to watch, the kind of things that they put these girls through. But I was just very proud to see a mixed race Canadian doing super well, because I've seen lots of like Korean born North Americans who go back to Korea at a young age and become idols. But to see a mixed race Korean Canadian, I was like, yes.
Word.
So it's so intense. I always kind of like fantasize about being an idol, but I don't know if I would be able to handle like the stress and the pressure of being an idol.
Yeah, I think everyone at some point in their lives, if not like continuously through their lives, at least can relate to the want to be the main character, right?
Totally.
Not just in your life, but the main character in everyone's lives. Like I grew up, a lot of little girls that I grew up with, we all wanted to be princesses. I always fantasized about being I used to fantasize about being like this long lost Japanese princess, like that had to like be moved out of Japan for totally, with this whole story, and that someday I would go back and like
reclaim
very much
your
like a K-drama.
Yes.
But yeah, everyone at some point wants to be the main character just in the world. One way or another, but there's so many downfalls to that. That we're starting to see with the people that we idolized growing up here in North America.
Right.
Either discovering that some of our idols were unhappy while we were growing up, or whether we're discovering that our idols growing up were actually really awful and horrible people.
Yeah. Totally.
To begin with.
And I think it's always a spectrum. There's always going to be production companies that treat their idols a little bit better than other production companies. But if you look up like idol drama on, say, like YouTube, you can learn some pretty interesting stuff. I don't think that like everything is 100% like the receipts are shown. It's like proven. But there's some things that kind of start adding up, and you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting for the opposite side of the spectrum too, for male idols. Male idols are almost kind of kept to the same level of like beauty standards as the female idols, which I see in North America not so much. Like guy celebrities can kind of just look whatever they want, but
I guess it's an interesting thing to talk about too, because we're going back to the point where production companies kind of assign you an identity. I know that that's also true for male or mask appearing or presenting idols. with a certain, like, maybe they assign them that you have to, like, wear eyeshadow, like,
Totally.
you have to wear eyeliner.
Yeah, you have to have, like, powder pink hair and wear a full face of makeup and stuff like that.
You have to have a different color hair every month. Or,
yeah. I think just the beauty standards in Asia just kind of come to a concentrated point for idols, where you need to be, like, you have to have, like, the whitest possible, clearest skin. You need to, you know, have perfect hair. You need to be perfectly in shape. It's kind of the same with the male models and the mask presenting models and the femme presenting models. And I don't really see that level of equality for as like oppressive as it is, that, like, kind of, like, same level in North America. Yeah, the women are, like, painted to the gods, and the guys are, like, in sweatpants, just, like,
and
chilling.
age is, like, a big factor of that too. Like,
100%.
Women here in the media, and I'm sure this happens as well with, like, idols in Asia, but, like, as the women age, like, you're suddenly no longer wanted. Like, nobody wants to cast you. Nobody wants to listen to your music anymore unless you were, like, a really big hit. Yeah. It's hard to, like, take off as an aged woman in the media. And I'm sure that's 100% true in Asia as well, but that's probably like a double standard that links kind of between the two.
Yeah, I'm sure it happens a little bit differently, just because Asians obviously like physically age a little bit differently than white people do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I still see a good amount of idols who came up in, like, the second and third generation of idols that are still pretty popular. Like, a lot of the four women from, like, 21 in Korea, like CL and Parbom, are, like, two. They're still out there. Anyone. Yeah, like, they're still out there. They're still making music.
Yeah. Big Bang is still out here making music.
Yeah.
And they've been around for forever.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like for the amount of idols that production companies pump out, they are still able, as long as they kind of keep putting out music, to stay relevant and stay in the spotlight, which is really nice.
Yeah, that's like music in particular, and maybe that's why, like, idolism in Asia is mostly centered around your ability to create and perform music.
Right.
That's like a niche that'll never die.
Yeah.
There are, like, I don't remember who was saying this to me, but when I was in Japan with our friend, someone told us, or maybe she was the one telling me, that some people in Japan go to, like, midday concerts, or will go to concerts like very early in the morning, like 7:00 in the morning. They'll go to these concerts before school so that they can still, like, go to school. And that's wild to me, because the concert culture here, the music culture here, is a little bit more, like, party based. It's a little bit more like, it's always very specific to a nighttime event.
Yes.
Because there's going to be drinks, unless it's an underage concert.
Right.
Or maybe different. But it's I think the culture here is less idolization for, like, most bands.
Right.
Unless we're talking about, like, group bands, like, you know, One Direction was a whole thing.
Oh my God.
Justin Bieber, you know, the more culty bands, for sure you see that level of fan.
Side note, Harry Styles is just, like...
Oh, he's out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's slaying just the fashion realm right now.
Totally. Just their, like, androgyny just breaking down. Yeah,
there was that whole thing recently where some people were getting mad for, like, literally no reason, that he was dressing in dresses
and stuff, because men have never worn any sort of dress ever in the history of the world.
Asian men in kimonos, never a thing. I'm like,
there's European
you're like, here's
cultures.
The historical,
I'm like,
background around,
like, what are we talking about?
Feminized like items of clothing. Who decided that a dress is for women?
For a woman. What?
Historically, that's actually extremely incorrect.
Right?
Yeah.
I can't. Anyways, we love you, Harry.
Anyway, we support the androgyny.
We do. Yeah. We full-heartedly support.
But anyway, yeah, so I think in Western culture, I think to an extent it's not as much about the idolization in the way that it is in Asia, because even like when Avril Lavigne would go and perform in Japan,
we love Avril in Japan.
It was all about,
let me tell
just
you,
like, you know, everybody showing up with the Harajuku highlights. The people crying because they're meeting their idols. And I'm not saying that that doesn't happen here. I'm just saying that, like, to a greater extent, it's much more so in Asia.
100%. Yeah, for sure. I think, like, I see in Asian idols, they won't really come out with their own brand of products ever. They just become the image or the face or the spokesperson for the brand, and their face is what sells the products. Where in North America, I feel like that happens a little less often, and it's more about our celebrities creating their own brand, creating their own products, creating their own fashion line, and less about them being specifically the image to sell a lot of products.
I think that's true now.
You know?
I think that's definitely true, like, now in, you know, in the 2010s. I'm thinking of, like, my experience going to, like, Walmart and, like, Zellers back in, like, the early 2000s, and seeing, like, different sections of those stores, or even, like, Winners that have clothing that was, like, partnered with, like, Britney Spears partnered with
100%.
Jessica Simpson, stuff like that. But 100% now... Yeah, there's definitely, like, more, like, independence given to Western artists.
Right.
To an extent.
Yeah.
To that extent, I should say.
Totally.
But yeah, I think you're right.
Because, like, obviously, like, lots of, say, femme actors will be spokespersons for, like, L'Oreal or Maybelline or something like that. But when you're buying their product, their face isn't actually
it's plastered on it.
It's not on it.
Yeah.
Like, there might be a little poster above it that says Maybelline and has someone's face on it, but it's actually not on the physical item itself.
Yeah, not
where here. Yeah, a lot of the idols, it's actually their face itself that's on the product.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do the same thing with their anime characters in Asia.
100%.
Which I think is an interesting comparison. And maybe that's, like, a better way to explain the difference between idols and celebrities here in Western culture compared to how it is in Japan or Asia in general. Is the idols in Asia are treated to the same extent and popularity that, like, Pikachu was.
That anime characters have. Yeah.
Like Hello Kitty.
100%. Yeah, because you're almost viewed as, like, a character.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a good point to make. You're 100% seen as a character. Yeah. No, and really, I think there's, like, a certain mystique, too, with the idols and their lives, like, too, that makes it more, there's an air of mystery about them.
Definitely.
That makes them less human.
Yeah.
To you.
Totally. Yeah. I wonder, like, it's going to be interesting when we eventually move and live in Japan to be fully immersed in idol culture and the idol community. But it's going to be interesting for me because I'm so into it, and I'm really worried that I'm going to find some dark secrets out, and it's going to, like, destroy the fantasy for me.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Everyone in North America is really obsessed with their celebrity in situations where they appear, like, more human. Like, I love so-and-so. I want to see so-and-so with no makeup, 7 a.m. at the line in Starbucks, getting angry at a TMZ reporter. Like, that's what people want to see, I feel like.
Yeah.
And then with idols, I don't think people actually want to see that. They just want the fantasy. Yeah. They don't really care about what's going on behind the scenes with that person.
I think there's a level of fetishization around that too, like, in Western culture about Asia. Like,
for sure.
And Asian characters and idols being like that.
For sure.
Like, it's for sure fetishized that when some tourists go down to Asia, you don't want to see the everyday person walking down the street. You want to go to like
you want to see the characters.
Kawaii Monster Cafe in Tokyo,
100%
to see the people with the wild hair,
because that's Japan to them.
Food. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you don't want to see it, and like maybe it's interesting to think of the fact that perhaps some of the people who live in Asia feel that way about their idols too.
Right.
I was reading a little bit about idolism because again, a lot of what I know comes from anime.
Yeah.
And it says that there were two booms. The internet says that there were two booms in the idol culture, once in the 80s, which is, I believe, when that like was introduced, and once again in the 2010s. So we're kind of in that second wave of idol culture.
Yeah.
I wonder how it's changed between then and now. Obviously,
right.
Technology is so different now.
Totally. Yeah. I'm not sure if Japan does the same as South Korea, but South Korea has different generations for when a particular idol or idol group came out. So there's the first gens, the second gens, the third gens. But yeah, so I don't know if it's like that in Japan as well, that there's like different generations. But I'm sure like each decade, like from 2000 to 2010, idols who were coming out in that time were, you know, a very specific idol. Then after 2010, you know?
That's true. Yeah, that probably is like a good introduction to talking about kind of some of the darker aspects of being an idol. Not that we haven't touched upon some of the downsides to being an idol, but just being disposable, I think, is like one of the really big ones, because you are assigned an identity when you sign your contract with a production company as an idol.
Yeah.
For a specific niche, which is also like for a specific timeline, it has to be, because culture in the media, it's always changing.
Totally.
What people are interested in is always changing, which explains as well why there's so many idols. There's such a high demand for them at different times.
Yeah.
Probably especially now, not only because of the world overpopulation, but because of just how short our attention spans have become with social media. But yeah, to be so disposable like that, that's probably what's changed in this boom. The introduction of technology and social media has made all of our attention span so short.
Yeah.
Like you won't pay attention longer than like a minute long video, and even like a minute is pretty, like it's pushing it.
Right.
And I can say that I'm definitely guilty of that too. Like I have a hard time committing to new shows and new movies because I don't want to pay attention for that long anymore.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's funny because I come from a background of filmmaking and stuff like that. But I was also being trained during the time where we were told by our profs that was going to be changing, and that we would have to be more accustomed to making shorter films, because everyone has a shorter attention span, and so shorter films are what we are encouraged to make. So that's not new to me, but when you're an idol, that's your life.
Yeah.
You're like your life and your well-being is depending on
people's attention
spans and how long or how like they're willing to pay attention to you.
How long you can stay relevant.
How long you can stay
ever-changing
interesting.
world.
Yeah, 100%. So I wonder if there are idol production companies out there. I hope that there are idol production companies out there that are keen to adjusting the images of certain, at least like probably only happens for the more established idols, but changing their look.
Right. Because they drop idols like crazy.
Left and right.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
There's so many really iconic idol groups that just completely disappeared.
Yeah.
Because their production company was like, you're not pulling in the same amount of numbers as this other idol group from another production company. So
and then you're just forgotten about.
You're literally just thrown into the
by
dumpster.
The whole world. Like until
100%.
Nostalgia kicks in for that generation of
100%.
people who were your fan base. And it's not just your livelihood, it's literally your life. Going
It was
back
your
for
whole
like
life.
the millionth time about the fact that idols are all recruited from a very young age.
Yes.
So going back and talking about how when you're young and you still have no idea who you are and you're given this platform that says this is who you are, you don't have to think about it, and then
Right.
a year or two, maybe like 5 years later, you're dropped, you're no longer relevant, you're no longer popular or of interest to the general population at that point, because you haven't evolved the same way that technology has. No one can keep up with the way that technology, social media progresses.
Totally.
So you can't possibly stay relevant.
Totally. Yeah. And you like obviously stay in school while you're in these idol programs and you're being groomed.
Yeah.
But because your main focus is your idol career, even though you're still going through school, you're not planning out a future with what you're learning in school or with academics or anything like that. So it's not like they come out and they're like, oh, well, you know, I have a psychology degree, so I'll just go and do that now. Like, they literally get out and they have nothing.
Yeah. They have to revisit the whole notion of who am I? What do I want?
They probably have to go back to like school and like do the whole thing all over again. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that too leads to like false ideas of like what you are and are not good at.
I'm sure.
Right, because you're recruited for specific reasons. So part of it is being told that you're not good at some things, that you can't do certain things.
Yeah, 100%. I know that there's some idols that auditioned to be actors and were picked up as actors, but then like a year into their training, they're like, "Oh, we think you would actually suit better in a performance group, so you're going to be a singer now, and you're going to have to learn how to dance."
Yeah, so you're used
so
to
they're
kind
already
of that
1 year.
leadership.
They're 1 year behind all the other idols that were already singing and dancing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's just so stressful, and you're not in control.
Yeah. Social media is really toxic in that respect to every culture, really.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that you bring up. It's interesting now that you are so accessible. It's really interesting to see the fandom of certain groups, and some, like, especially like K-pop fans in certain fan categories
crazy.
are out of control.
Yo, the BTS
If you
community.
mess with BTS, their fans will destroy
No, they're
you.
straight. They're coming. I can hear them now.
They will change the world.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess with them. But it also means that if a particular member of one group has a beef with a member from another group, that person on social media gets the full blunt force of their fandom, like, attacking them.
Yeah.
That must be so intense.
And that's
So intense to try to deal with.
Yeah, and that intensity fully is what leads to like cancel culture in the media too,
Yeah.
right? Which is like beyond the production company's like ability to, or well, arguably, but it's not just from the production company, right? That's just something that happens to you now because of the accessibility and the lack of separation between your life and your career.
Totally.
On the internet.
Totally. Yeah.
People can find one thing about you that they don't like, and then you're canceled. Whether that's your contract ending, being torn apart,
Totally.
or literally just people deciding that you're gone, you're out.
Yeah. I know, it's so crazy. Also, so with idols, especially in Korea, a lot of the larger groups have idols who are from other countries. So there are some K-pop groups that have like Japanese members. There's some K-pop groups that have like Taiwanese members. Most people in North America know Blackpink. Lisa from Blackpink is Thai. She's from Thailand. When she came to South Korea, she wasn't allowed to speak English with anyone. She could only speak Korean.
What?
So she literally had to like teach herself Korean in order to go through this like idol program.
That's crazy.
But the sad part about it, like, she's talented, she's beautiful, she's an amazing singer, she's an amazing rapper. Her fashion is like on point. People have been so racist to her. it's insane. You can look up videos on YouTube of some really, really upsetting situations that she's been into where people have been absolutely horrible to her. So I think racism is also a part of stuff that you have to deal with on social media. Definitely from people like on social media from like outside of your country, but like even from people inside of your country.
Yeah. And we were talking about some of this on like our first episode of the podcast, where like if you're mixed race in Japan
100%.
at least, like you're usually looked down upon.
Yes.
But I think that changes when you are like an established like celebrity of a certain level of popularity.
Yeah.
In the media, suddenly you're put on a pedestal as like for Japan, like representing Japan.
Totally.
There's that famous tennis player, Naomi Osaka.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she like had her fair share of like trouble with that for a while
Yeah,
until
yeah.
she really like until her career really took off. And she's talked about it publicly, and I'm glad that she did. But yeah, it's interesting how racism kind of like plays a part in your overall ability to capture people's attention or to just maintain your level of popularity.
Yeah. Like I always, again, like was always interested in becoming an idol, but I wonder how how I would be received by the Japanese community, being mixed race Japanese, that then also not being from Japan and not being able to speak fluent Japanese. Would I, regardless of how talented I am, even be able to start a career?
Well, that's why it's really awesome to see idols and celebrities like, is it Rina Sawayama?
Oh my God, our girl Rina.
Our girl Rina, she really like came out with her music and uses the comedy, the humor around a lot of what it's like to be mixed race, the whole like what are you question,
Yes,
and puts it into her music, and it's fantastic because she does hold quite a following and she is mixed, and it's interesting.
She's mixed and she's British.
She's mixed and she's British.
Yeah, it's so interesting. She's blowing up right now. Her music is so good. She is from Japan, but she was raised in the UK. But because she isn't a born
Japanese person.
well, no, because she's not a born like British person. She isn't allowed to be entered into certain like award categories because she's technically a foreigner in their eyes, even though she's literally lived there her entire life.
Didn't they like just change that for her?
I really hope so.
Yeah, I think that like I think it might have like just changed for her. I could be completely wrong, and I'm sorry if I am, but if it did at all, it would have been because of her following, the mass following that she now has,
which I love
in her music. Yeah, I really hope that there's like more artists like her in the future, not just singers, but actors, visual artists that are out there that gain a following like that and use their platform the way that she has to talk about the differences in how she was treated.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really cool too in recent years to see groups that are actually from Asia being nominated in North American award shows for certain categories, like BTS like winning awards. Also, idol groups coming and performing, like Blackpink at Coachella.
Yeah, the director of Parasite, that Korean horror movie, won an award, and like in North America at one of the award shows, and there was like everyone was mad because they were like, oh, it's not even in English.
It's not an English spoken.
It's not an English spoken film, so therefore it can't possibly be American.
No, because I think they won in a category outside of foreign film, and they're like, you can only win in foreign film because you're not speaking English.
Was in Korean. Yeah, that was really disappointing.
But they won.
But they won.
So there we go.
Yeah, we got a stepping stones.
Yeah. So that's exciting if people are opening up to allowing people from like Asia to be a part of awards and nominations and acknowledgements in North America. Hopefully, like North American born Asians will eventually get noticed and will hopefully.
Well, idols and celebrities from Asia should be considered for all of that here because they have such a mass following here.
Usually an international following.
Yeah, a lot of them have an international following.
100%.
K-pop was like a major thing for me when I was in high school. All of the friends that I grew up with, and none of them were Asian, were super into K-pop. And that wasn't something to be like ashamed of. It was like, it's not now. It never was, but like, you know, some people hide that they're interested in K-pop. Yeah, they should 100% be considered for non-international or foreign categories.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I hope that in the future there are more categories open to non-foreign idols and artists from Asia, given the amount of following here. Hopefully, like, this is the second boom of idolism in Asia, and obviously the longer it's around, the more it does spread out to North America. Hopefully, if this boom continues or the next time we boom in the idol culture, there is more room for changes. There's more room for changes in people's interests through culture. There's more like room for development for those idols so that they're not just kind of thrown to the side the way that they currently are. And I hope that there's more discussion around stuff like that. I hope that more artists like Psy come out with their own production teams. To help the idols who have been kind of thrown to the curb 100%. Over time for different reasons. It's really empowering to see artists helping artists like that. Even to watch it from a distance, I hope that we get more stuff like that here in Western culture.
Totally.
But for now, it looks like we are kind of where we are with social media being the level of influence that it does have on everybody. And we'll have to see where it goes from there in the future.
Right.
More inclusion, everyone.
100%. That's definitely what I want to see. More inclusion and more borders and boundaries being dissolved and... Yeah, they're people too. Not just characters. Okay, well, thank you everyone for tuning in this week on the Hafu It. You can find us across most of our socials as just Hafu It. I am Kyoko, and on Instagram and Twitter you can find me as This Is Kyoko. And I'm Sakura, but on social you can find me at saku.miki.
And give us a follow if you want to kind of keep along with things outside of the podcast or get a couple of sneak peeks into what we are working on next.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.